Oh, not quite. Um, you find yourself in Orthanc in the morning, having a maybe unusual breakfast. You are sitting at this massive stone table that Saruman has created sometime in the past. This like black carved table, and he's sitting at the head of it. And along with you is King Gurney Firebeard, is Elrond, half elven, is Galadriel, like the most ancient and powerful elf that has ever been. And so it's a weird situation when someone reaches across the table to like take something to eat, and it's Galadriel. It's a very normal, mundane action for someone like her to do, and I think it makes everyone feel a little bit strange. Saruman has provided like the correct fare for everyone. There is no argument about what anyone's eating, because you could imagine very easily that the dwarves would be offended that there's no ale or meat here for breakfast, and the elves in the opposite direction. But it all seems pretty pleasant. It's a little quiet, maybe a little awkward as you eat breakfast. Of course. And she'll like reach for the platter, which like seems to make a singing sound as she like picks it up, and like barely seems to move as she passes the platter to you. Yeah, she notices but would never say anything. Um, this may be like the slightest look of like, how quaint, and then she'll get back to looking at her plate. There is little time, Saruman will say, as he, with like incredibly long fingernails, like butters a piece of bread with this dainty little knife. My ravens have spotted forces moving all over Middle Earth. The Dark Lord will strike wherever he can to keep the free people of Middle Earth from uniting and joining us here. But this is where the hammer will strike hardest.
foot in the White City.
Gondor has ever been resolute in its opposition of Mordor, and will not fail Middle-earth on this occasion either. I'm sure of it. But Gondor is distant, as you say. And the lands in between are Rohan, and Rohan is overrun. Gondor can perhaps draw off the armies that are besetting Rohan.
It is not just that army we must worry about. There will be others coming from Mordor, coming from the dark places. They will coalesce here.
If they come that way, they must cross the Anduin. Osgiliath was a battleground, but was not lost, last we heard. And the other crossing places could be attacked as well. Gondor is still powerful, the most powerful realm in the West. It would be foolish not to call on them, on us.
Agreed. This is a doom we shall all share if we do not unite. We can only hope that Gondor will answer. Now the matter remains, where do we go? What path do we tread? Which will be the swiftest?
Coronir, could they not speak with Treebeard and Skinbark? Radagast sort of twitches as he speaks, and like scratches at a beard, and a lady bird like crawls out onto his finger and then like flies away, and he watches it, and it like flies a little bit too close to Galadriel, and he like gestures and it like flies in the other direction. The Ents have been our friends. They are kind and powerful. They could help. And Saruman sort of closes his eyes.
Says, Baragon has heard of many things, but I don't think he's heard of the Ents before.
They are the shepherds of the trees in Fangorn, ancient and powerful, thought forgotten, and supposed to be that way. And he'll look to Radagast like, you're not supposed to talk about the Ents. But yes, Treebeard is valiant and a friend, but they are slow to act. They will need to be encouraged greatly to move and act in the time that we need.
If these creatures are as powerful as you say, Saruman, they could provide an excellent attack on the road to Isengard. Or could they be convinced to stand within our lines?
They could. They're kindly. They mean well. They're old, and they... well, very old, maybe the oldest of all the things that move, but they, and Saruman sort of like drums his like nailed fingers onto the table and he like stops talking. The Ents take a long time to decide anything. Anything at all, never mind something so drastic as involving themselves in a war. But they are mighty allies, and if we can bring them to our side, all the better. But it will not be easy.
Sauron wreaks destruction across the land wherever his forces go. Surely they would be galvanized by such a thing. Their forests would not be spared.
You would think so, and yet it has been tried before to get them to act in the defense of the free people of Middle-earth. They prefer to stand aside.
Is there anyone they might listen to? Anyone at all?
Gurney, will you be eating that piece of bacon?
He looks at the stack of quickly dwindled bacon and like the one slice he has left of in his plate, and tries to decide if it's more correct for a king to keep the bacon or to gift it. And sort of, for a moment, thinks and says, "No, of course. Enjoy." And will pass the plate in your direction. You think he might be miffed about it?
Baragon takes it with a slight sort of inclination of the head and then tucks into it. Mm.
And you can see Thorin looks at Gurney like he didn't call you Majesty or anything. And there's like a look between the two dwarves of like the cheek of men sometimes.
You see Glendyre looking with this elvish, snobbery kind of look on his face at the blackened meat that Baragon next to him is chomping down on.
You should try some of this, he says, noticing your expression. And wafting it under his nose. Glendyre is very good.
It smells burnt. Baragon.
Brings out the flavour.
Perhaps next time, he says, and takes a sip of his wine.
In which forest are the Ents?
It's in Fangorn. It's the oldest place in the world. It's been here since before the world was here. It's really a fascinating place. There are so many creatures there that you wouldn't believe, and the plants grow. And again, there's like the fingers rapping on the table, and Radagast like sits up like a kid that's been told to be quiet.
Baragon sort of takes his plate with his bacon and goes over to a sort of tapestry map on the wall, looking at the map. Is Fangorn the nearest forest to Isengard of any size?
Yes.
If they are to build, I do not know how orcs lay siege, but if they are to build siege weapons, catapults and things, they will need wood for their war machines, and the nearest source of wood will be Fangorn Forest. Would their taking of the trees offend these Ents?
Oh, yes, they'd be furious. Oh, they'd be so furious. I'm sure that would make them act quite quickly, actually. I mean, for an Ent quickly, but again. Radagast, please, control your tongue. Orcs are industrious, and they create, much like we are. Sauron, many forget, was a Maiar of crafting, of creation, and he is most powerful in this art, and that is not lost on the orcs. They are industrious and clever. It is likely that it is Fangorn that they would raid for the wood to create their machines. Something I would wish to avoid. Treebeard has a hatred for orcs unlike any other creature.
It conjures a thought. Too cold to consider. But must we really wait until the fires of Mordor burn at Fangorn before they are encouraged to join us?
Surely not. Surely a counter to the speed at which the Ents decide things could be countered by one who speaks quickly and kindly. And Glinda looks over to Radagast.
He sees you looking and then looks behind him, like you must be looking at someone else. And then sort of just like gazes in Saruman's direction for a second. And he like drums on the table and there's like Radagast, you are familiar with wild places and you have an affinity for those things closer than my own. If you wish to try and speak with Treebeard, I will not stop you. He looked quite pleased with that. Elrond sits back in his chair and like picks at a grape and like puts it into his mouth and like chews it completely and swallows before speaking. Everyone sort of watches him do that. And then he leans forward. The men of Dunland, if they can be called such, are warriors, and there are a great many of them. And they have been wronged often by the Rohirrim. They will not help for free. They will not do it from the kindness of their hearts. Of that we can be certain. They will want something in return. They will want parts of Rohan. That is not our place to decide or to give. Though, where the strength of Rohan is and its royal line, who can say? Do they still dwell within Helm's Deep, or have they been extinguished?
It is not ours to give, Lord Elrond, but it has not always belonged to the Rohirrim.
The rivalry has a source. There was a first slight, after all.
He like makes this gesture where he like rubs at his forehead. I know only too well the greed of men and what it can cause, and this slight that may have begun as a slight has turned into a war that has lasted for centuries. The Dunlendings are not going to forgive the Rohirrim just because now there is the threat of violence. At least I believe so. Maybe they can be convinced. Maybe I am wrong. Though you can tell by the way that he says that he thinks he is never wrong.
If the Rohirrim are to be saved from Helm's Deep, would they still have horse enough to ride? It's their cavalry that will turn the tide of this battle.
Who can say? Galadriel will speak. They are hidden within the fortress, and their horses are as children to them. They will not have abandoned them. But can they leave through the gate that they entered? Unlikely. But there are other ways out of the Hornburg. She says, and everyone's like, are there? There is a way that leads into Enedwaith, which are wildlands, controlled mostly by the Dunlendings. You need not the power of foresight to see what will happen if bedraggled and exhausted survivors of Rohan spill out into Dunlending lands.
Then we must speak with this high chieftain first. That remains only what is to be done with Gondor, or thought of for Gondor. Would Denethor simply admit to an alliance simply from a message being sent to him? I've met the man only once, and he was proud. I fear he would not drop everything to come to the help of other realms at the risk of his own.
The line of kings of men has been weak in ages past. Then the line of stewards, doubly so. Elrond will say, quite bitterly, and sit back in his chair.
Perhaps we do not need them to come here, Feroth. Perhaps they might slow the armies as they march, offer some resistance, give more time to those here and their task.
He will still need persuading. I fear a simple message sent to him will not be enough.
Gondor is too far to ride and return with any force.
I can speak with the Lady of the South Wind, and perhaps she can bring you there.
I think Faroth would dwell on that for a moment and then nod. We must speak with him. And we should compel him. If he sees the beacon upon the mountains lit once more, then he is to commit his forces to the final fight. But first, the fate of Rohan hangs upon the edge of a knife. If we do not help them soon, they will be lost. And then so shall we.
I know the beacons are maintained in Gondor. Are they maintained in Rohan? Have they been lit already? Do we know this?
I don't think that you would know necessarily. I don't think that Gondor would have. Rohan would have.
It wasn't mentioned.
No.
In any of, although they were beset by the three armies of the Easterlings, there was no mention of the, which is strange. For the queen of Rohan is of Gondor.
Yes.
All people she would.
Her court was contested by another.
Speculation does us little good.
You're right. We must ride to Tulum and speak with this Hive Chieftain. From there we will hopefully be able to plan an extraction of the Rohirrim and their remaining strength. And then we shall fly to Gondor.
Very good, Saruman says. And he will stand smoothly from his chair, and as will everyone else, and get to work. So, is your intention to all stick together and go to Tulum, or do you want to split and go different places, or what do you think?
My only fear would be that if it comes to us having to press cavalry out of Helm's Deep in some way, it might be better for all of us to be present. But it might be quicker if we split up.
It's up to you guys. There's, lots of places you can go, and if you want to split, that's not a problem for me. It'll be quicker. In game terms, it'll be much quicker than you going to one place together and then going to the next place together. It'll take you a lot more days to do that. But this way you can cover a lot of ground more quickly. But I also understand the danger of splitting up and going to dangerous places.
I think it makes most sense, meta and in character as well, to send, to send for the Lady of the South Wind as immediately as possible and get someone or someone's on their way toward Gondor. The sooner that stone is cast down the hill, the better. But we also want to, we need to pursue each action immediately, really, as well. We need to go to Tulam as well, so.
And to Fangorn, maybe, or are we going to leave that to Radagast?
I think Radagast will probably have a better chance than us.
Do you want to leave anything to Radagast?
That's a very good point. That is something I hadn't considered.
He's powerful, but he's also quite childish, he's a wizard, but he's sort of quite... he's probably the happiest person in Middle-earth. He's very zen, I think, in a way, but not necessarily the most task-focused, It's easy to imagine him getting there and then just sitting on a stump and talking with Treebeard for 6 days.
Finding some mushrooms.
Would you posit that perhaps a trip to find Treebeard and a trip to Tulum might be roughly the same time?
Potentially, yes. I think the thing about it is, Fangorn, time moves differently there, and you never know how long you're in there, really. And Ents take a long time to say anything, so that'll depend.
We'll be back in 3 years.
Yeah, but roughly, they're roughly equidistant, I would say, Fangorn and Tulum. Gondor is far away. It won't take very long to fly with a giant eagle. It'll probably take less than a day to fly from Isengard to Minas Tirith. So it's
but I'm thinking of the responsiveness of mobilizing troops.
If we're considering sending a group to Fangorn and a group to Tulum, then I think the elves would probably have a better time in Fangorn. I think they'll be less susceptible to its power, being, creatures of trees.
There also might be more weight behind an offer from men to...
that was what I was thinking for the Dunlendings as well.
Yeah.
Especially a descendant of a king might have some weight,
Okay, then should we set some kind of rendezvous position? Because there's no telling who's going to be able to be back first. Potentially, if we time it right, we could have spoken to the High Chieftain. Presumably he accepts our insulting offer to help their age-long enemies. We can then meet you and then take on Helm's Deep? Maybe?
Wait, are we taking on Helm's Deep or are we flying to Gondor?
What about Gondor?
Yeah, I think somebody's got to go to Gondor before we try and rescue Rohan. Otherwise, we risk not getting to Gondor in time.
Yeah, and we could see, we'll be flying, whoever it is will be flying overhead of of Rohan along the way to Minas Tirith, and you could gather some intel and sort of see what's going on to lend more weight to the words for Denethor's ears. And we can only do a 3-way split at best because there's no way Glindyre is not accompanying.
It's also worth considering that the words of elves to Denethor will be absolutely useless, probably, you would think.
I had the same thought. I was like, he's not going to listen to us.
Yeah. I think maybe if anyone, Beregond has the best chance there because Faroth is problematic for Denethor.
If he knows, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
But the White Tower isn't blind, so
maybe Beregond to Minas Tirith, Faroth to Tullum, and then I suppose the elves accompany Radagast to Fangorn. Is that right?
And Ariel would insist that she could go by herself and does not need protection when in the company of a wizard.
I was thinking Glyndire as well would be torn between wanting to work with Kirthanga the Smith and all the other great craftsmen here and pursuing that in his role in this. But that's been his bane, he hasn't been able to pursue his craft as much as he would like because of his duty to his sister. So that's an interesting thing.
I think if you mentioned that you were wanting to stay for that, and Ariel would like do the like almost like the ruffled the head and be like, you are not yet a master. Your skills continue to grow, but I would not wish for you to be a hindrance in spite of your great talent.
He stands a little straighter in a bristling kind of way.
Noriel Elf Delta.
I say this not to discourage you, but so that you might make the choice which is best.
You would know Kirthanga is like old for an elf, not Elrond or Galadriel old, but still old and has like thousands of years of experience in smithing. And that Glyndare is effectively a child in many ways, like in elven years, and so like any help is appreciated with the smithing, and I don't think Kirthanga would be like, no, off you fuck, like get out of here. Like, but there's only a limited amount of stuff that like Glyndare could do there, I guess, but that would be hard for him to swallow, I think.
You're right, of course. There's no true choice. I must pursue my other craft, he says as he, I suppose he lost Belegthoniel, his sword, didn't he, in the thing? So as he, I don't know if we'd be armed in here, probably not. So I was going to say, as he sort of grasps the spear that is now in his possession, that you used to wield. I will not be leaving your side. A wizard holds much power and many secrets of this world that even we will never know, referring to their longevity. But he has not fought the shadow in the way that we have. And I think he would look over at Radagast like, just like absently, like picking at something, like picking some fluff off a mushroom, or like
having a little conversation
like
with a bird in his hand, and he's like, yes,
yeah,
I see. Really? Yeah.
I would not trust your life to the focus of this wizard.
Radagast, could I try one of those mushrooms, please?
Oh, these ones, they're quite potent, Master
Oh, no.
Beregond. Of course you can, but I believe you have a lot of work to do, and that might be somewhat debilitating. But nonetheless, and he'll like fish around in his pockets, and then like in his inner robe, and then like under his armpit, and then eventually pull out like this little pouch and hand it to you.
No, I just meant one of the ones on your plate.
Oh yes, of course. Yes. Never mind these then, and he'll like tuck them back in and hand you the plate.
And I like watch that exchange, and then looks back to Glendaire. Your mind is made up. I have never yet been able to persuade you otherwise once it is. So be it. I will not mind the company.
Then it looks like we're going to have Beregond fly to Gondor, Faroth lone rangering it to Tulum, and then the elves going with Radagast to Fangorn. Is that right?
Yeah, Faroth will look to Beregond and say, there is a nagging feeling, a heavy load upon my heart that tells me I should return to the White City.
This was the way my mind was going to. I know the workings of the White City better than you, but maybe my place was quite low in Gondor society, and the councils of the powerful, it was at the bottom. And I do not know if these things will have changed. And maybe I have seen you reveal yourself. It may not have an effect on Denethor, your lineage, but there are those in Gondor who it will strike a chord with, and whose counsel you can sway. And maybe it would be an idea for you to go to Gondor and try to sway them, while I go to Tulum. I had the longest talk with the Dunlandings on the hill, and it was I who suggested they earn a new place in the world and reforge their future, and they seem to like it. We seem to have some kind of rapport. Maybe I can proceed from there. But it's one either way. I will do as you suggest.
Beregond, you say you are of low rank behind the walls of Minas Tirith, but you are of the highest quality within the ranks of men, and that will be recognized. We are heralds of Middle-earth. And so
Beregond sort of grabs your hand and clasps it and says, "My king, you give me strength, but it is sometimes easier for strangers to recognize a man's worth than for their families who have seen them every day and are clouded by history as to what they are like. They will remember me as I was as a child and as a young man, and may have difficulty seeing me as I am now."
then they will be shown Beregond of Minas Ithil. Together we shall go to Tulum, and then together we shall step beneath the threshold of the White City. We departed from there together, we shall return just the same. I must have words with Saruman. There is one final matter I would ask of him.
So there's a sweep up through Orthanc, and we see Saruman in one of his many studies, and he is poring over books, and he is like pouring something into something else. Strange contraptions of glass, glass you rarely see anywhere. This like magical see-through material, and he like is doing something with his like hand, which is long-fingered, and like is poring over this. As you approach near the doorway, he'll say, "Enter."
Thank you, Saruman. I have words. I would have words with you, but they must be brief, for soon we depart. When we were north from here, facing the Umbar fleet, there were many stories about the weapons and powers that these people could use. And it was told to me that you, Saruman, are capable of creating some material that makes fire reduce stone. I would ask of you, though I know your time is short and likely better spent focusing upon, and he stops for a moment thinking about the ring, the great power that resides here. I would ask if you have any of this material or are capable of making any in such a short time to deliver as much of it as possible to the caves that lie below Isengard.
He sort of inclines his head like ever so slightly to the side. Why?
We cannot defeat the forces of Sauron by sheer military might. That is understood, and that is why the ring must be destroyed. But even so, we are still going to be outnumbered 10-1. We need to look for any means to even the odds. And should the ground fall beneath the armies of Mordor, channeling them like a torrenting river against our lines, we may stand a better chance to repel them.
It was often said that Isildur and his father had the most kingly of the bearings of that family, but I can see in you and Arion there is a strength there, something recognizably mannish. I will be able to do as you say. And we will make this stand worth fighting.
Thank you, Saruman. And let our efforts not be in vain. And with a courteous bow, Farrell sweeps from the room to prepare.
There's another whoosh, and on a balcony overlooking the greener part of Isengard stands Galadriel, whose robes seem to flow no matter what the wind is, and you can find her there, Honoria.
Lady, you have many gifts. Do you know what I have seen?
And she like turns to look at you and sort of looks into your eyes, and there's like this whisper that you can hear, and then she turns her head. You are plagued by dreams, foresight. Elrond has a similar affliction.
Must it come to pass?
It is hard to say. It is a possible future, one of many. Often the sight that is given to us is one of hopelessness. I've always believed that it is to urge us into action. Lord Elrond has other ideas about his affliction, and the effect that it has on him is visible. He sometimes lacks hope.
I find that in myself as well.
It
has
is
surprised me to find hope among men.
It is a special gift of men that they can find hope in the darkest places, no matter how devastating the odds, no matter how hopeless the cause. They believe that they can win. It is a small form of insanity, I believe, but a very charming one. And it is useful because our kind have a tendency to wallow and to see what is ahead and behind, and to see that there can be no real change or hope. That is one of the curses of living such a long life. But men's lives are bright and short and full of action and full of fire.
I see fire, but it leads to death.
You're not alone in that. The difficult part, Honoriel, about seeing things that have not yet come to pass is the interpretation that we give those things that we see. It is not a certainty that these things will happen, and it is in our power to change them, and we must try. You are young. This is new to you. Elrond is young, and he wallows in the things that he sees. But I have spent the lifetime of the world seeing these things, and I have come to realize that it is not always so hopeless as it seems.
It feels immutable. I see some variation of the same dream each night. The same verse, the same voice. How can I change it?
I, I cannot count the years, had visions of Morgoth, of the greater evil than even Sauron, and the war of wrath, of a dragon that would crush the world, of the breaking of the world, and of so many things that did come to pass, and yet I am here. And you are here. We are still here. Maybe you will see fire. But fire can be cleansing as well as destructive.
I will think on this. Perhaps I need not wallow.
You can try. Elrond has never succeeded at that, and it makes him sometimes difficult to be around, I suppose. And she'll sort of smile a little bit, and it's like the sun has appeared, and you can hear birdsong, and the breeze is just absolutely perfect and catches her hair in this way. You will be all right, Honoriel. There is a destiny to you that I have seen. And the dreams that you dream are only to prepare you for what you must do. has always been thus for me.
Then I will endeavor to be prepared. And perhaps Elrond needs to spend more time around men and their unbelievable hope.
A little reckless enthusiasm would do Lord Elrond a little bit of good, I think. But you try telling him.
No, lady.
Good luck.
And you as well.
Elrond is climbing the stairs to his chamber when he hears a voice calling from behind him. Master Elrond.
We see like him moving up the stairs, and he like closes his eyes for a second and frowns. Master Beregond, what can I do for you?
Your mother was Elwing, and your father was Eärendil, who became the Mariner. And Elwing was the last person on Middle-earth to own one of the Silmarils. I have read about them in stories, I have heard about them, but I have never come across someone who has actually seen one. You are one of the few people, one of the only people alive in Middle-earth who set eyes on these jewels of the First Age. We have battled our way through darkness, but it's stories like these that keep me going. Can you tell me what it looked like?
It is impossible to describe, Master Beregond, what these jewels look like. You cannot imagine a thing more perfect. Think of the most perfect thing that you have seen. What is that?
I
The
have
Lady
seen the ring,
Galadriel.
but that is not something to go by. But to be honest, as I asked you about the Silmaril, and you thought on it for a moment, your whole face lit up, and maybe reflected in your expression for a moment. I saw some dim reflection. When all this is over and we have won, I will come back to trouble you on a more detailed description.
I shall think of a way to try and put it into words, Master Beregond. And if you can make it back and we have won, then I will gladly spend hours describing it to you.
He gives a little bow, and then he finds one of the knives from breakfast in his hand that he's sort of he's stolen from the breakfast table, and he goes back to his pocket and goes off with it.
Elrond walks up the stairs, sort of rolling his eyes. Men. And will wander to his duties. Okay, so we're going to have the two men go to Gondor now, and the two elves go to Fangorn.
Just quickly before we do that, can Glinda have a conversation with Kirthanga the Smith?
Yes.
So I guess the vision sweeps down to the forge. And Kirthanga is Glinda's mentor, right? In smithing? Is that right? Yeah.
He's like the master of the forges in Rivendell.
Yeah. So Glinda will find him down there, making preparations, possibly huddled around with some of the other great craftsmen that are gathered here. And Glinda feels like the child that he is in some ways in Elvish society, sort of standing off to the side waiting for waiting for the masters to finish their work, or have a pause so that he can interject. Might even be one of those ones where he sort of clears his throat a little bit a couple of times.
Yeah, he's like, they're looking over like a plan for some sort of machine, it looks like. And he's pointing out like, no, this needs to be a clear lane. It cannot be orange hued. He's explaining this to the other smiths, who are sort of like, of course, that makes sense. Then he says, all right, we'll need this much of this. And if you can, and then he'll hear the cough and he'll like, and then go back to the work for a moment and finish his sentence and his thought, and then say, I'll return. And then he'll like turn to regard you. Lindare.
Give a deep bow. Master Kirthanga, thank you. I'm sorry to bother you at your work. I know this is the true purpose of our final stand against the Dark Lord, and the blades and the blood shed outside of the walls of Orthanc are for naught but to give as much time as possible to your work here, so I will be brief. You may remember my blade, Beleg Thoniel, Might Kindler, which you helped me craft, he says with a little smile, tinged with regret. It is lost beneath Methedras.
He looks stricken, like a friend has died. Yeah.
Out of reach of the orcs that dwell there, he's quick to say.
That as well. And terrible shame. It was a beautiful blade.
It served me well for many centuries. I do not know if I have time. He sort of looks over his shoulder, looks to the door before I go, but if I would have leave of using the forge to craft a new blade, I would feel much better for it.
How long until you leave?
Dawn.
He like looks out of the forge to the light outside and can see that it's probably like mid to late morning. And you can see him like computing in his head like the exact amount of hammer strokes and work that would be required to create a blade in that amount of time. It takes him a very short amount of time and thinks it is possible, though it will be difficult. All right.
Thank you, Master. I would not take your time. I will craft it myself. If you have but one assistant to spare.
Yes. We are in a situation in which there are makers here that have skills beyond our own. We're here with dwarves, and though there are many things that the dwarves lack in terms of refinement and etiquette and culture, they do not lack the ability to create beautiful, functional things. And I think the combination of your knowledge and one of theirs would create a beautiful thing.
He smiles. Fine embodiment of our alliance between our peoples.
Indeed. If you can get past the smell, it will be an excellent weapon.
I would not dwell upon the smell.
See that you don't.
And he'll just give a quick bow to let him dismiss himself and get back to his important work.
Yeah, he'll go over and like say something quickly to somebody, and then they will like rush off and get the necessary stuff. And they'll bring you like the finest stuff that you can think of, like fine mithril with which to carve this and make it, and like the necessary oils and like lane to create the magical bindings within that will make it Orcbane, which is something that you have done before. And then you're encouraged to go and speak with the dwarves to see if one of them will help you create a fine thing. Is there anyone particular you want to speak with, like approach? Like Gurney is here and he's like a famous smith king. He might be busy also, but it's worth a shot. But he's got lots of, like, they all have smiths with them, like a lot of them, to work on this, you know.
Yeah, I think he would, after he's done that initial sort of preparation, he would then turn his attention to the task of finding an appropriate dwarf craftsman to help him. And so he would see Gurney, busy at work with Kirthanga and the other masters, and he'd maybe come over to maybe there's a dwarf who's working on an anvil that have like a bucket or a pile of just plain rings that they're sort of one by one doing something to, working on them, trying to practice some particular type of hammer stroke, and like cursing and throwing that one away and grabbing the next one. And he would approach that dwarf.
Yeah, he'll look up. He's as wide as he is tall. A slab of a dwarf. He's like a perfect square, like the perfect shape for a blacksmith, you think. And he's like rippling with muscle and sweat, and just wears like a thick leather apron. And he like, and then like says something, curses in Dwarvish, and like picks it up and like throws it into the pile. And I know the dwarf will take it out and then begin the process of like re-ringing it. And so there's like a constant production line happening, which is something that you don't see so much in elven forges, which is a much more unique, slow process, understandably.
Yeah, everything is like bespoke.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So will it be by your hand that the ring is unmade, Master Dwarf?
I think that's unlikely, but I'll have a hand in it.
Sadly, my duties lie elsewhere. Would be glory to be involved in the unmaking of the ring, but I have my part to play outside of the forge. But I have need. I'm to make a blade before I leave at dawn.
Good luck.
Will be difficult. I've near done it before, and so I know that I cannot do it alone. And he looks between this dwarf and the one who's assisting him.
Yeah, this one looks at you like, okay, there's elves over there. But the other one like looks at him and then like leans over and whispers something, and he goes, "Oh, you want our help?"
Just nods. If you would have it, if you would give it.
What do you wish to make?
What more fitting way to galvanize the alliance between our peoples? No? I wish to make a blade, an Orcbane weapon. Have you done this?
Have I done this? He says with a straight face. He says to the other one, and he like punches him in the arm, and they like nod. Yes, we have done this.
Excellent. And he looks down to the rings and the current task that they're doing. Can this wait until dawn tomorrow? I mean, to get started now. He gestures over to the station where he's already started getting things set up.
Aye, I suppose so. A good way to start the day. I'm Thogrim. And he'll like reach out his like perfectly square, meaty hand.
Kind of like looks down at it with a bit of an elvish grimace. Glendower. And he takes the hand and gives a firm handshake, despite the fact that his own hand is eclipsed by this dwarf's huge mitt.
Yeah, and it's like covered in soot and dirt from like the work he's been doing so far. And but yeah, the two of them will come with you to your station, and we'll begin. They have a really good sort of team flow already of like doing tasks in a certain order. They will teach you some of that as you go through the process of like, you can turn this into a factory line and you can do the job 100 times faster if you are doing a repetitive task or something like that. And I guess they'll talk pretty much constantly at you. Not really interested in whatever wisdom you have, just interested in giving theirs. But nonetheless, you can work through the night. So I will want from you, do you have a smithing skill, or do you have like some sort of...
So I do have like a feature from my smithing background. Let's bring it up here. Crafting, okay. Artificer of Erigion. I can enhance and enchant weapons. But yeah, that's... I can make I can customize non-magical weapons and stuff. But I think we did speak earlier about this can be a little bit sort of bit more freeform. So if you want me to just make a few rolls or have a skill challenge or something like that.
Yeah, let's make a skill challenge, I think, and it'll determine like the quality of the thing.
Cool.
So it won't even, because you can't fail at it. You're not going to not make it. So it'll just we'll just do 3 rolls of skills that you think are appropriate, and they'll like change the quality. I think like lore. Is there a lore in this?
Yeah, I've got lore. Oh well, there is lore. I have a +0 to it, but yes, there is lore.
Also, shadow lore makes sense because you're making an orc bane weapon.
Yeah.
I don't know what other skills would be appropriate. Athletics, definitely.
Yes. Okay,
to make a sword in one night.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
Traditions.
Ooh, traditions is good. Yeah. If you have that.
Yep. So of all of those, only athletics has any sort of positive modifier. But
okay, do you have any?
All make sense.
Do you have any mental skills like that you are good at? Or are you just like a Burl Meister?
Relatively min-max. I've got no. There's like survival +2, but that's not going to be persuasion, performance. So no, I think like athletics will be the one where I've got a +8, and then the rest are just flat rolls. I think let's see how that goes.
All right. Well, you can add 5 to the lore from the dwarves.
Okay, awesome. So we'll do that one first.
Okay.
2 on the dice, so that's a 7. 14, so that's 22 for athletics for going through the night. We'll do shadow lore for the orc bane. That's a 13.
Okay. All right, so it's definitely not Belacthania at the end of this process, but you couldn't expect it to be. It took you like 50 years to make that sword, you know, and you've made this in an evening. But you'll be working basically all night up until dawn to create it. And it is, at the end, like quite a beautiful to look at weapon. It maybe lacks the strength and finesse of your previous weapon, but it is definitely functional, and it has some dwarven runes along the length of the blade, which was one of the insistences that Thogrim made. And he has assured you that will make sure that it'll cleave orcs in half with no issue. I'll figure out what the stats and stuff are in between, because I don't know that you'll need it right now, and I haven't got them on the top of my head.
Oh, good.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Cool. All right, well then let's take our break here, and we'll go on our big journeys when we come back. Right. So, at the top of Orthanc, on the wide, flat platform at which Saruman often casts spells, you are standing, and he has been for the last while calling to Gwaiwar, the Lady of the South Wind, who after some time will appear, and with like the insane thunder of her wings will like alight on one of the four spires that stick up from the top of Orthanc, and will look down at Saruman and demand to know why she has been summoned. And he will explain, we need your help. It is of grave import. The only hope that we have is to stand here as long as possible against the coming of Sauron. And I would beseech you, my lady, that you may bring these two men to Minas Tirith, and then return here with them, if you will allow it. And she like thinks about it for a second. Her like head rotates in that weird way that like eagle heads can rotate. And she'll like preen at a feather for a second, and then her eyes will like lock on you, Faroth, first, and then on you, Beregond, and then will this one, Trixie.
Beregond is disappearing behind Faroth.
Are you certain that you can trust him, Curanir? And Saruman sort of looks and says, yes, my lady. He is necessary for this journey. With that, then she'll come down and allow the two of you to climb onto her back. And she'll give Saruman some side eye. You think that she's not keen or delighted having been summoned here, but there must be some old like promise that keeps her doing this. And then she will. And again, you feel that like sense of insane, like your stomach hasn't left the ground, but the rest of you has. With the force and speed of it, as you're like up in the air, and then another and you're above the clouds. And then the speed at which she moves is impossible. You've never gone this fast, except for the last time several days ago that you were on the back of this eagle. And she will fly and then dip below the clouds, and you can see the white mountains which separate Gondor from Rohan beneath you. Again, a strange sight to be above the mountains. And you can see as you go that there is a lot of devastation in Rohan, that there has been damage done, definitely. You can see that smouldering ruins of some of the towns and holdfasts. And Edoras too seems to have been destroyed. It's too high up for you to see details, but you can see where Edoras is and that there is fire there. But nonetheless, you fly, and it's no more than a couple of hours before you come to the end of the White Mountains, and you can see the Anduin sort of snaking along, and fires in Osgiliath, and then Minas Tirith itself. The lady banks and dips, and then eventually will land, no warning whatsoever, before the white tree. You can see that guards are absolutely like shocked and had no conception that this was coming, and they don't know what to do. And these are the most elite soldiers in Gondor. They have these insane like plumed helms and extremely well trained, but nonetheless they sort of like stand together. They move together and they form a sort of phalanx in case something happens. But then they realize that it's an eagle and not some fell beast. And then they sort of like step aside and lower their weapons. Announce yourself, one of them will call.
I am Beregond, son of Beren of Minas Ithil, and this is my companion, Faroth, son of Fardred, one of the rangers of the north. We were on a mission from Denethor, and we need to speak to him.
He like leans over to one of the others, who like rushes inside. the Lady of the South Wind sort of like awkwardly like walks further down towards the end of this like massive platform, and sort of not quite roosts but like perches herself at the very edge of it so she can look over Minas Tirith. And you stand in somewhat uncomfortable silence with these guards who are watching you. It is not unreasonable for them to be confused or worried as to how you got here and that you have landed in this sacred and forbidden place. You don't just get to like hang out at the White Tree. One of them will question and say, Faroth, son of Fardred, of the Dunedain?
That is so, and of the Northern Kingdoms.
Heard of you. And you.
My brother Belagar is in the Tower Guard.
Belagar? He's off shift. I can get him. I should get him.
It would be good to see him again. But our first mission is to speak with Denethor.
You've done a lot of good, it seems. You have freed Gundabad, and you have stood against the enemy.
Good. The messages have got through then.
Some, yes.
Our plight has taken us the length and breadth of Middle-earth. And now we find ourselves returning here where the journey began.
He'll step forward.
And how fares Gondor?
Not well. I will warn you that Denethor will not be glad to see you. You must prepare yourself for this. Much has been lost in your absence.
Gondor, Denethor is a man plagued with many troubles.
More than ever.
He was rarely happiness is not part of his usual character.
Beregond, we should counsel quickly if the mind of Denethor is unruly. We must speak on what we should ask of him.
I am Turgil, the man will say. I'm the captain of the Tower Guard, and regardless of how this goes, speak with me after. I would have words with you.
Thank you, Turgil.
And then he'll step back and allow you to...
My brother spoke of you.
He's a good man. I'm familiar with his work. Though he has a little bit of an eye for finery, nonetheless.
He said you were he said you were a merciless slave driver in training.
I'm glad that my reputation precedes me. And it's impossible to see like the smile behind like the full faced helmet, but you can hear it in the way that he talks. And you have like a moment, you can see already someone is coming back from, but it's like a very long platform. You can see that they're on the way, but you won't have long.
As a Gondorian, Beregond, what would our best approach be?
Speak the truth, but also what we can of Denethor's moods and present state of mind.
Very well. Though I can't imagine he is particularly fond of anyone who is late. Least of all by a year. And some.
The steward will see you. You will surrender your weapons.
Okay. Beregond first of all hands over the butter knife that he took from Saruman's table. Then he unstraps Next, he unshoulders his bow over the hands over the elven bow of Celebrimbo. Next, he hands over a dragon tooth blade, and then a black alloyed, much chipped, and finally he reaches down to his boot and pulls out a dagger and hands over that.
The guard is not anticipating ancient relics of unknown power when he extends his arms to the weapons and sees the bow of Celebrimbor and can recognize immediately that this is not just your bow. It's not just a weapon that you carry. It's a relic, and he sort of looks at it and looks at you and sort of very good. And you?
Farroth does much the same. He removes the daggers that rest on the back of his belt, hidden behind his flowing cloak. Then shoulders off the longbow that hangs around him, along with the quiver of Numenorian arrows, and then finally, rather begrudgingly, unbuckles the Flame of the North. And as he presses it into the man's chest, he stands close to him and says, "This blade is a relic of great power, and it is dangerous to be wielded if not correctly."
I understand. He sort of swallows and is a little nervous, I think, with all this incountable wealth and power in his hands, and then will escort you to the hall. It's a pretty long walk, and you pass the tree, which has not sprouted. It's dead, basically. Has not sprouted in a very, very long time. But nonetheless, it is a wonder. And past the fountain here at the top, until finally you enter into the massive hall of kings here, and it too is long, and your steps echo as you move down it. It's dark. Not a lot of the light from outside gets in, and the massive throne is empty, but at its base there is a much smaller chair in which sits Denethor, and he'll look in your direction as you approach. Farroth, son of Fardred, and Beregond of Minas Ithil, wonders never cease.
Beregond bows before his steward, and then approaches to a comfortable, but not a respectful but comfortable distance to speak, and says,
"It has been a great deal of time since I sent you upon your simple errand, has it not? Pray tell, what has led you to tarry so?"
I sent one missive from the halls of Thranduil, and one more from the Grey Havens. Did they get through?
One did.
Then a quick summary. We found orcs in the Mountains of Shadow, forging weapons and enslaving folk. We released this, and he goes on and on. If somebody wants to interrupt him.
What my companion is trying to say, Denethor, is that we came to answer a higher calling, a calling that concerns the fate of all who dwell on this Middle Earth.
It is Lord Denethor, and you're in my hall.
And you are merely a caretaker of it.
He doesn't know what to say to that. His eyes narrow, and he stands up. "Who are you to come into my hall and speak in this way? How dare you?"
I am Farroth, son of Fardred, but I am of the line of Anarion. And since my journey began here long ago, I have come to understand that there are many great powers in this world. Powers instilled within blood my blood. Though I do not stand before you as a usurper this day, Denethor, but I aim to show you the seriousness of this matter. I would not speak so openly to you were the circumstances not as dire as they are. We have flown from Orthanc, bidden by the White Council themselves, for a great army will soon be moving across the width of Middle-earth. And without the aid of all who dwell here, it shall be the end of all.
Do you think that I am some kind of fool? That I have done nothing to stand against the enemy all this time? You are wrong. I have done more than most. More than any, perhaps. Daily there is war, and my armies stand at Osgiliath against endless tides of orc that spew forth from the Black Gate, and we have been at war continuously. They came to the very walls of this city, and we repelled them. And I lost 2 sons to this war. I have lost everything. And what have you lost in your wanderings?
Everything. For we have been at war too. I've lost friends. We've lost countless men in battles beneath Mithadras against the endless rock of Gundabad. Many sacrifices have been made from all to bring us to this day. But if we do not move as one united force, we will fall. I understand that Gondor has bled indeed more than most.
And what, now you come to seek the help of Gondor, when none have come to aid us? Where was Rohan, and the dwarves, and the elves, and the grand alliance that you speak of, when Gondor was bled near to death in Osgiliath? And where was the aid of the White Wizard, when my sons fell on the fields of Pelennor? And where were the elven princes and dwarven kings, and we built pyres for the dead? Where were they? Nowhere to be seen.
As you built pyres for the dead, so they were fighting and giving their lives to save other parts of Middle-earth. They were fighting the Witch King up in the ruins of Anuminas. There Gandalf the Grey fell. The White Wizard has been mustering his forces and fighting against the armies of the 3 armies of the west that came in, led by Shakaria Alfaharo, Queen of the Haradrim, the Wayne Riders led by Urzular and Urzulag, who fell at the battle. There have been many sacrifices and many wars all over the world, and now is a time not to fight them separately on separate arenas of war, but to focus all our strength in the one place where we can defeat Sauron once and for all.
If we take our strength from Osgiliath for even a minute, they will flood across in numbers you cannot imagine. Every day we are fighting in Osgiliath.
I can imagine the numbers, but I suggest fall back from Osgiliath, draw back your forces, leave a minimum guard on Minas Tirith, and maybe surrender 6 of the 7 walls of Minas Tirith and fall back with enough men to hold the others, and with all your riders, with all your men, ride for Isengard, for that is the battle that will decide Middle-earth's future. not the Battle of Minas Tirith, not the Battle of Minas of Osgiliath. In Isengard, the of Middle Earth, and that's where we need you. That's where Gondor can strike the killing blow against the enemies that so plague it. If you can only see the opportunity.
You would have me abandon the last city built by Numenor. You'd have me abandon this place when we have already lost Osgiliath and we have lost Minas Ithil many years ago. This is the last bastion of men.
This is your chance to win them all back. To win back. If you fight without bravery, if you fight a rear guard battle, you will lose them all. But if you dare and face opportunity and strike out, pull back your men and strike out at Saruman, and we marshal our strength at Sauron and marshal our strength, then this is our one chance to defeat the enemy once and for all, and to win back Osgiliath, win back Minas Ithil itself, and take the gates of Mordor and level the Black Tower. Do you wish to be remembered?
I will not be remembered as the steward who gave up this city to the enemy, or who led my people into a foolish attack against the forces of Sauron. I will hold this city with my last breath.
Denethor, we hold the Ring of Power. And because of that, the enemy will fall upon Isengard with full force.
You hold it?
Somewhere safe.
Why not use it to win?
We are.
We are.
And that's why we wish you to bring your men and to claim the birthright of Gondor.
Faroth gives Beregond a strange look for a moment, but doesn't say anything.
What do you mean? Speak sense.
Isengard is a place where the ring is. It's a place where Sauron's forces are gathering, and it's the place where we need to resist him, and it needs someone. It needs someone with the courage to use the forces of Sauron against him, to lead his forces and strike out at Sauron, and lead the forces of the Free West and all the power that they can muster. And at the moment, we have the ring.
And there is some hope.
The hope only that the forces of Sauron will be directed entirely upon Isengard. This will provide the forces of Gondor to harry and to strike. And perhaps, if we act quickly, even arrive before they.
And so the reason that the attacks have become stronger in Osgiliath is not that they seek to destroy Minas Ithil or Minas Tirith, or that they seek to go to Isengard.
That is it. That is the truth.
And we should let them pass.
And strike them in the rear. And muster your forces, get them to Isengard some other way. You can ride south of the mountains and come up north, and come in from the gap of Isengard from the other side.
There's a pass at Caladros.
The Rangers can slow them down and play havoc with their supplies, while your heavy infantry your heavy riders and heavy infantry march take ships around the southern coasts around the Bay of Belfast and land a force and march up to Isengard from the other side, and there we will there you will command as Gondor, as the inheritors, the last remnants of the powers of Numenor will come marching in and lead the resistance and direct the powers.
Yeah, you think he likes this. He sits back down in the chair, less outraged, and sort of drums on the armrests of it as he sort of thinks. We could crush them there, all of us together, if they do not come from Minas Tirith. They will not expect our forces. And who is at Isengard beyond the White Wizard that guards the ring?
Elrond of Rivendell, Galadriel of Lothlorien, and many others of great power and skill and cunning.
They will not.
The alliance of the dwarves and of elves. Sorry, Lloyd.
They will not use the ring.
It is to be used in the capacity that we have put forward to you, Denethor. A lure to drag the forces of the Dark Lord across the length of Middle-earth and to destroy him there.
Well, this is much to think about. I will need to speak with my generals.
There is no time, Denethor. We must act now.
This is not your hall yet, Ranger. It is mine. And I will take the time I need to make a decision with such weight. There are thousands of lives on the line. My people, who have bled daily for years. I will not see them destroyed in some battle in a far-off land. So I must think, and I must speak with my generals. They will know.
Then we shall await the answer of your council, Steward.
You will find lodgings in the city.
Isengard can probably withstand the forces of Mordor for 20 days, 25 days at the most. You do not have long to think.
You are dismissed.
Fareth turns and walks. And he does the Aragorn thing of pushing both doors as he goes.
The guard sort of looks dumbfounded at what has happened and hands you back your stuff. And doesn't really know what to say as you leave. And you can see Denethor sort of like with his head in his hand, thinking, brooding.
One last thing before perhaps we jump away. Faroth walks almost the length of the plateau atop to stand where the eagle is, and his eyes are fixed upon the horizon, in particular the large mountainscape, which is wreathed in red light.
Yeah, there is an endless storm of thunder and fire in Mordor.
There it lies, Beregond. Once again, we see the domain of our great enemy.
Beregond had his eyes he was fastening on his arms and equipment, but basically also trying to avoid making eye contact with you. But as you say his name, he flinches, looking up at you, and then follows your gaze over towards Mordor and sees the fires burning out there, and gulps and nods and tightens his belt.
On the other side of the White Mountains, now you have walked up a carefully carved staircase that exists through Saruman's making between Isengard and the Forest of Fangorn. And so you walk comfortably up it with Radagast in tow, and move down into the forest very quickly. There's no easy way through this forest. There's no trails that follow between the trees. Everywhere that you've been previously, including Mirkwood, everywhere has ruins of previous ages, not Fangorn. Nothing has ever been civilized here. There are no statues, no ruins, nothing of the kind. It is wild here. And you can feel that in every breath that you take. It is like mist-filled and seemingly isolated from the rest of the world. You cannot get a sense of where you are in Middle-earth once you enter it. And though it is ancient, it is abundant with life. Everywhere that you look, there are animals, insects, plants. And it seems even that the plants follow you with their gaze as you move through it. And things seem to grow and die here at a rate that is much too quick. And as you kind of wander through this forest, not really sure where you're going, Radagast seems to know. He'll occasionally like move to a tree and like knock on it and like listen against it, like he can hear something, and then like nod and then like move 20 paces to this direction and squat down, and then like without looking reach down and pick up a beetle, and then like listen to that for a moment, and basically we'll follow this insane route as you walk behind him. He couldn't be less like Saruman if he tried. He is the absolute opposite of the White Wizard in every possible way. He's affable and he's kind and he's informal, and he is totally lacking in the mystique or power that Saruman radiates with every movement and every word. And yet there's something about him that does strike you as similar. Though he doesn't have the same kind of wisdom, he definitely has a kind of wisdom. And you move through for the better part of a day, you think, though it's impossible to know in this forest what time of day it is, what year it is. It could be the first age or it could be the 10th. You have no way of knowing. And eventually he stops very suddenly, like he's arrived at the place that he was expecting to arrive to. And it's identical to every part of the forest that you've been in. There's nothing here that would mark it as unusual or different. And then he simply sits on the ground. They'll meet us here.
Yeah. When?
Well, they like to take their time, so it might be a little bit.
We have little time to spare.
They often say don't be hasty. They don't like it to be rushed. And he looks at you like, you get it, right?
Glinda turns with an elvish sort of snort and moves around and looks at some of the trees and the life that's in this place. It maybe run a finger along a leafy branch, and have like a little a small maybe like a caterpillar or something climb onto his finger. This place is unlike any other. I've been to many in Middle-earth. Is it only Fangorn where the tree herders dwell?
I think so, yes. This is the oldest forest in the world. It's been here since before men were a thought. It has always been here, and will always be here. Well, I hope. But I believe that it has always been here since the first thought existed. And Treebeard and his ilk have always shepherded the trees and ensured that they are safe and sing them to sleep when they are wrathful.
I'm sorry. The trees become wrathful.
Oh yes, very wrathful, incredibly dangerous. Actually, they are called horns. They can, well, tear a man apart very easily. In fact, it's incredibly dangerous to be here at all.
And she like looks at the very still trees.
And there's like a.
There's still much to learn in the world, it seems.
There is always something to learn in the world. Yes, what a foolish thing to say.
And as if to punctuate that, looking down from looking around at this groaning, Glinda looks down and sees that the caterpillar upon his finger has made a chrysalis, showing how strangely time passes here, and soon enough, surely it will emerge.
And as you've been standing there, like some of the vines on the ground have like wrapped around your ankle. You can like pull away, but it's notable that if you stand still for too long, you become a part of this place. Radagast seems to admire it. He's like sitting on the ground and he can see that like some mushrooms have like grown on his thigh, on his robe, and he like delightfully like plucks one and just.
Yeah, I think Anariel had considered sitting, but seeing the forest move and grow such would instead pace and await the arrival of the Ents.
Yeah, there's like an unknown amount of time that goes by as you sit here. And time moves differently for elves as well. If you were men, this would feel infinite, I think. But there is a time, you think hours later, where you can hear this like crashing and thrashing. And then all at once you're standing before an Ent, this 25-foot tall thing. It's got white bark and its skin, if you can call it that, is smooth and it looks like a birch tree maybe. It's got these two very long arms that end in these 5 greatly articulated, with many more knuckles than a human has, fingers, and at the top is a face, a very simple face, almost like it was like carved there. The eyes are impossibly ancient and they look at you like you are surprising and interesting. What? doing? Here. In my forest.
We have come by leave of Saruman. There's a danger, an immediate and present danger to your forest.
Saruman is our friend. What is danger?
And Ariel kind of looks at Glendair, knowing that he might be better equipped to explain the industry of the orcs than she.
Glindar has got his hands cupped. And he opens the top hand, and the butterfly is sitting in the palm of his hand. And it's surprisingly to him sort of stays there as he continues moving around, his long blue elven cloak sweeping behind him. The ancient enemy, the Dark Lord, is moving against Middle-earth, against the free peoples and the wild places, and his orcs and their axes and their fire. They ravage the lands. And they are coming here. Your forest will not be spared.
Slow down, little thing. You are being very hasty. We have no enemy.
Is your enemy the axe? Is your enemy fire? Is your enemy the loss of the trees of the forest?
The axe has no intent. It is simply a tool. You are not making sense.
You have no enemy, great Ent. But there is still danger. You will be, and your forest will be, a casualty. The orcs will come. They intend to lay siege to Isengard, to destroy all who are within, and they will destroy your forest in the process.
Isengard. Nan Kuronir is its name. That is where the White Wizard dwells. And he looks at you like, I'm getting there. They call me Quick Beam, for I am known to be hasty among my kind. I will gather the others and we will speak about this enemy.
Do not be hasty, but do not linger. For if you linger, you will find that your forest is gone.
And at that, Glyndar looks down to his hand at the stillness of the butterfly that has finished its oddly dilated life cycle in this strange place.
Radagast will move over and climb up the Ent, and will sit on his shoulder and like whisper. And you can see the Ent is like blinking occasionally and listening and like nodding, and then says, "Slow down." And it's slower than you would have anticipated. Even with the warnings, it takes forever to say anything. And even explaining more than one concept at a time is very difficult, because they need a lot of time to process every single thing that you say. But he's listening, and he can hear the urgency in your voice. And so he's going to call the others. And so he will turn and make this noise, this weird, hollow flute sort of noise. Although it's more like a whole section of an orchestra that makes this call, like a horn. And over the next couple of hours, other Ents will arrive in various shapes. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are leafy, and some are bare of leaves. But all various shapes will arrive here in due time. And back in Minas Tirith, you are standing at the edge of this platform, and you await whatever verdict that Denethor is going to give. The captain would have seen you sort of, I think, unhappily walking, and will approach. It did not go well, I assume.
Denethor seems overly cautious. I believe we have a chance to save Gondor and to restore the strength of Gondor and defeat Sauron. And hopefully Denethor will see it too and lead his men to Isengard. All the men that can be spared. The rest. But it will be a great sacrifice to Gondor. It's lands that are being defended in Osgiliath now, by Osgiliath now, will be overrun by the forces of Mordor. But if we get a force round to Isengard, we have the means in our hand to defeat Sauron once and for all.
Many of us here are unhappy at being stuck here and doing nothing. We know of the strife that Middle-earth faces, and yet every day more are sent to Osgiliath for some reason to die there in this pointless battle for a lost city.
We do not want to divide the strength of Gondor. We want all the strength of Gondor we can. I don't know if I heard that Denethor has lost his 2 sons, and if so, are there any voices he listens to anymore? Are there any who hold sway in his council?
There are some. I'm among them, as captain of the Tower Guard. But there are other generals who believe that the constant fight for Osgiliath is vital, and that it is a thing we cannot give up, and that it suggests defeat if we abandon it, and Denethor believes that with his whole heart, I think.
Do you see hope and success in Denethor's strategy?
No. I have cautioned against this for a long time. And to continue throwing men at Osgiliath when they can grow orcs in days is a futile effort, and it's something that I have spoken with Denethor with before, but I don't know. I have fought for Gondor my whole life, and now I am captain of the Tower Guard. That is the most prestigious position that there is in Gondor, in the whole kingdom. And yet still the king will not listen to me. He listens only to his own counsel and the whispers that he hears in the dark.
He is not the king. He is the steward. But remind me, when you swear your oaths as a captain of the Tower Guard, do you swear your oaths to the steward or to the king of Gondor?
To the kingdom.
And the kingdom, the line of kings fell long ago, and the stewards have been ruling in their place. Is that not true?
It is true. For centuries. The line of kings is broken.
What if I were to tell you that the line of kings is not, the line of kings that ruled Gondor is broken, but that royal blood still lives on. The royal blood of Numenor lives on. There were 2 princes who came from Numenor, Anariel and Elendil.
This city was the city of Anarion. Osgiliath was for Elendil, and Minas Ithil for Isildur.
We will wait for Denethor's decision, because it will, if he decides to march, then all of Gondor will march, and there will be no doubt, no division. But if Denethor shows reluctance, meet us when you come off your duty, and we have something to tell you.
I will.
And I glance over at Faroth to see if he's anything to add to that.
Aroth does not add anything to that. He gives you a look that you can't quite calculate the meaning behind. And no, he doesn't say anything at this point.
Yeah, you can sort of make out that there is a loud conversation happening within the hall. If you wander back in that direction at any stage. Obviously, the generals have met in there, and Torgil is among them. He's gone in to discuss what's to happen. That seems to be a loud and difficult conversation that's happening. There's people on either side, I suppose. You could hear that argument about what's to happen with Gondor. But after some time, the best part of a couple of hours, I would think, you'd be asked to return to the hall.
I guess we leave our weapons again and go in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Denethor is sitting at his chair, and there are several people standing around him, generals of different places. You would think the Knight Commander and the Terror Guard Captain and all these different people who are important military figures. And Denethor will say, "It has been a long discussion, and we have considered your proposal. And we are willing to step back from Osgiliath to allow the enemy to pass through. When we have confirmed that they will not come from Minas Tirith, then we will join." I will send the Knights of Gondor and 3 cohorts, 3 legions of infantry along. I will have to keep enough here to protect in case the enemy returns. This is my gift, as I received nothing from those other realms when Gondor bled so heavily. But I am a more noble ruler and more aware of the world around me, and I will not see other men destroyed for my pride.
They will be too little, too late. If you wait, but if that is your decision, it is the wrong one.
You can see his fingers on the arm of his chair tighten. "I will forgive your insolence this once, Beregond of Minas Ithil, Minas Morgul, now long fallen. It is not correct that a man of your station should speak to me in this manner. You are dismissed."
I do not come here as Beregond of Minas Ithil to give you my opinion. I come as one of the generals and of the armies that retook Gundabad. I come as a representative of the White Council. I come as one of the
What care have
herald
I?
of light.
What care have I for what happens in Gundabad or some foreign council in a distant land that has done nothing to aid Gondor? Whatever fanciful name you give yourself, you are...
Every battle fought against the shadow is a diversion against of the enemies of Gondor. It draws enemy troops from Gondor and helps to keep it alive slightly longer. And now we have the opportunity to save Gondor. Duh. But I do not. I have come here to give you my opinion and my request, but I do not question your right to rule.
You can see like a number of the generals around him like sort of nod at that, like that's correct. He is the steward. That's how it's supposed to be. But some of them can hear the tinge in the voice, and you think like Turgil is among them, and wonders at what you had spoken earlier, and sort of like ever imperceptibly sort of tilts his head to the side, like, what is this?
Bergon pauses a moment to see if there's any reaction. Bows and starts. He's been dismissed. He starts making his way out.
Farrell turns and walks with him.
A strange way to show gratitude, Denethor will say to like one of his generals, and he'll say, "Yes, my lord. Very strange indeed. These people don't understand what you have done for them."
And Bergon will go straight to the Tower of the Guard. After getting his equipment back, he will go to the Tower of the Guard. And
Faroth will stop
there.
at the door. And as he is re-bequeathed with his belongings, he walks back into the hall. The flame of the north in his hand.
Bergon, realizing what Faroth's done, will quickly be strapping on his sword and try to get back in. Just get back to the door.
Yeah, I think as you like walk in, there's like the clunk clunk echoing, and the guard who's like at the door who took your weapons is like looking at you like like he's not going to try and stop you because you're the two of you. But some of the other guards in the room will like notice you coming back with a sword and will like look confused between you and then like up to where the generals are. And one of them will like step forward to like point, and you'll see Turgil will like put his hand on that guy's arm and shove it back down.
Be it your arms, wardens of the tower. I hold before you the flame of the north. It is the ancient weapon of Inarion, the very mighty lord that sat a throne here in Minas Tirith long ago. And it has come to pass that this birthright now rests in my hand. I did not come here to bandy words of ascension to a throne that has long collected dust. If truth be told, I've looked upon this position with disdain. It was never meant to be mine. But when Aragorn, son of Arathorn, fell, the right to this city became mine. I would not have dreamt that I would pursue this. But now, Denethor, son of Ecthelion, it is you who have pressed me to this decision. Your inaction will be the end of us all. And that is why, and holding the blade aloft, he calls forth the name of his ancestor, and shining, the dying light of the day catching through the windows upon the blade, I take claim to this throne.
And Bergon shouts, Hail, hail Faroth, son of Fardred, true king of the line of Anarion, and last of the royal line of Gondor and Arnor and of Numenor. And he goes down on a knee.
The reveal of the blade and the light and the force of the speech is enough to like knock Denethor like backwards from his chair, and he like stumbles onto the ground, and you can see like some of the captains there will kneel, some of the others will like look confused for a moment, and then like you see one of them specifically, the knight commander, who is like quite an old man and has been here a long time, and he looks extremely veteran. He looks between you, like standing there, and Denethor, who's like scrambling on the ground and like trying to get back up onto his like sad little chair, and then shakes his head and kneels as well. Long live the king! Cool, we're going to end it there because there's no way it's getting better than that. Okay.